Good morning and welcome to the course. This is my first video for you, as it were. My name's Farah Driver. Obviously, I am your instructor for this course. At this point, what I want to talk about is how I grade. Now, I'm sending out, obviously, a written explanation of this, but for the purposes of trying to help us out after this first week, I thought I would go ahead and try to talk you through some of this so you understand my thinking and it's all together kind of in one place. This is your discussion for question 1. Now, as some of you have noted in emailing me, you don't have a textbook for this course. Instead, each week you have a list of these things right here, these required sources, and they are required. You need to use all of the sources that are in this prior to the beginning, work on the discussion, read or watch these things. These are all required. And because of that, how you demonstrate to me that you've actually used them is that you must cite them and reference them in your top post whenever possible. Also, of course, if you refer to them in your comments, you also need to be sure to cite there. But this is how I know that you've actually been paying attention to this. These are all good sources. They all work with the flow of what we're discussing this week and with the things that you need to know. And as I've tried to point out in my announcements and everywhere else that I have a chance, this is a history course, unfortunately for many of you who don't like history. But it's a very focused history course. It is on the role and the emergence of women in Western art and the idea of art reflecting social change. And you will see that more clearly as we go through the course. But definitely here, using references to actual female artists that you see, or particularly in the video, The Story of Women in Art, but also in the examples that were used in the other two sources, will definitely make your post stronger. And you're going to see that again much more as we go through this. So I know these are confusing. There are a lot of words here. Unfortunately, this is the nature of online work. There's a lot of reading and writing. So I'm going to show you literally where everything is located in this, and then I'm going to show you the grading rubric so that we understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so the straight up points, your discussion top post is due on day 3, which for this course is on Thursday, and you need to reply to your classmates by day 7, which is Monday. Now, within this, there are some other requirements. As you go through this, you'll see, right through here is where my post ends and where the actual explanations come in. You need to have a multimedia component in your top post. And quite often this just means an example of an artist's work that you want to talk about, an image of that, or if you found a video that is not one of the ones in our guided work or one that is in the resources for the course, you need to include that. And just a brief discussion of how it helped you, how you think it'll help others, how it also works to help your top post and your comments. This also is a requirement. And I grade for that as per the rubric itself in the critical thinking component. And again, as I said, in just a minute, we'll go to the rubric so you can see where this comes in. The other part of this is that you want to respond to your classmates. And you need to have at least 3 posts, but because this is based on the idea of discussion, or as they call it, dialogue, you want to do these over 3 different days. Anything that you respond to me with counts as 1. If I respond to you again and then you respond to me the next day to that second time, that all counts with that. Anything you say to me counts as a response. But I also want you to kind of work with your peers. I will try not to overburden you. I will respond to everybody, particularly if your post is in on time. If it comes in after whenever I have to grade it, then it's problematic for me to go back and do that because then you don't have a chance to respond. But the idea here is to keep a dialogue going. So if you post on Thursday and you respond to somebody else who has already posted on Thursday, then you need to come back on either Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, Sunday, Monday. You've got 4 days, not counting Thursday itself, to respond. So the idea is 3 different days, and I will check that. Okay, so going to the rubric itself, I encourage people to always look at your rubrics because they're actually what we have to go by to grade with. We have to put numbers into those. And it says here, obviously, you go up to your settings for the page to get to the rubric. Show rubric, here we go. Right, so here's your actual rubric. Now, it's broken down, as with all of these, into the 4 components: the general content, subject knowledge, critical thinking, engagement, participation, and then your written communication. And it's in the written communication that we talk, which is where I go for your citation points. And then within that, you've got your 5 different categories. You've got distinguished, which is effectively a strong A; proficient, which is a strong B; basic, a strong C; below expectations, a D; and then of course non-performance speaks for itself. The way I do this is general content subject knowledge is where you're demonstrating to me that you have understood and comprehended the material in the readings. And this is kind of the here I understand the history, here I understand what the points were, here you're demonstrating to me that you've got just a working knowledge of what we're talking about. Critical thinking, however, is a little bit harder, and it's in this that I include your multimedia component and your explanation of it. Because basically what you're doing is you're taking that image or that video or that multimedia thing, and you are demonstrating how it fits into what we're talking about, the bigger themes of what we're talking about. This is also where you're using your examples of artists to support your argument. It's where you're demonstrating to me that you comprehend the material well enough to give me a discussion of the examples that you think go with it. Engagement participation, obviously, this is your 3 responses posted over 3 different days. And it also means that you're demonstrating even more or more diverse knowledge there, especially if you pick up on a point that a classmate makes that you didn't make, and you're like, oh, this is a great idea. You could use this or that to support it. Just something that says to me, you're seeing all the various facets here, but also that you're engaging with the other students and with me when you get the chance to. Written communication, this is pretty straightforward, but it also includes this thing about citation. And as a historian, I'm really big on citation. You get to use APA for this, which means that basically all you have to do is during the course of your writing, when you are using an idea from somebody else, when you're quoting, when you're using something that's not common knowledge, those are the 3 big times that you must cite. At the end of the sentence, you close the sentence, you open the parentheses, you put the author's last name, you put the date, and if you're using something that's written, you also include the page number so that the person can go specifically to it. These are mandatory sorts of things because this is part of what the academic work is based on. It's the idea that we create new thoughts out of reading what people have written and seeing it in different ways. But that means you also have to give credit to the person who had an idea that you're using. I will refer often to this document that I posted for you in the first week announcements, how and when to cite. Here you go, in these announcements on your page, it's going to be right here, reference how and when to cite. This is a document I wrote myself, so I have tried to set it up for you as to how I want you to cite. I've got examples in it of how you're supposed to cite. It is very straightforward, and it basically explains the 3 times you must cite. Most everybody gets the easy one, copying and pasting, where you have to use quotation marks at your opening and close of the quote, and you must then immediately after the close quotation open your parentheses, put your author and date and location again if it's a book of where you got it, and then close the parentheses. All of us get that. That's pretty simple. But if you are not quoting, but you have an idea that you picked up, like if you're referencing an artist that was in the video and you're talking about her, even though those are you're analyzing it yourself, you're still using material that you learned from the video, so you have to cite there as well. The same thing applies to if you're reading something. If you get any idea, any inspiration, any fact from somewhere else, even when you're putting it in your own terms, explaining it, you still have to cite at the end of it because you got that from somebody else. The 3rd time is when something is not common knowledge, and this is hard. I'm not going to lie about that. I know this is a hard thing because we all assume that we all know what we're all talking about, but we don't, especially in history courses and with a lot of you going off to really cool other places, and I thank you for that, and getting other information and out of your multimedia components. You're going to need to cite those as well because that's not going to be common knowledge to everybody. So common knowledge and getting ideas from other people can often overlap. Sometimes it might be something that you learned from somewhere else or that you saw somewhere else, but again, not common knowledge to everybody in the course, so you have to cite it then as well. If you have questions about citation, please feel free to ask me. Also, in the references, in what I call my reference posts, there's one from the library, there's one from the Writing Center. Both of those have really good videos on how and when to cite as well, and I've tried to put some of those in also. All right, so I think that covers what I want to see in discussions. Basically, it's just a really good analysis of all of the required materials, as well as your thoughts, which you can bring in from other things that you go out and look for to help supplement what you're learning. If you have questions, please let me know. Either email me or ask in one of the forums, and I will be glad to address everything that I can. This week, the first week, I'm always a little easier about the grading. This is a warning to you because I know that this is the first time you've had something in this course. This is the first time that you've learned to figure out what these things are. And again, the point being, you've really got to pay attention to the requirements of the discussion boards themselves. Anytime you have a question, go look at the rubric. But you have to have a multimedia component in all of your discussions, and you've got to have citation in all of your discussions, and you need to use the required sources for the week in all of the discussions as well. So be sure you include those big three things. And again, if you have questions, let me know. The journal structure is very much the same way. I'll be a little more lenient on grading those this week, but when I get your grades back to you, which I'm going to try to get those done in the next several days, I have to have them done by Sunday, ask me, because I know that you have other ones that will be due on Monday. So, all right, good to meet you all. Thanks for attending the course, and I will hopefully be giving you more feedback soon. Thank you.